Oh, hey, I'm glad you're here. One of the great perks of growing up in a mom and pop video store was the promo tapes. And for anyone who doesn't know, mom and pop shops would receive catalogs of upcoming releases, usually with all the big titles in there. But small distributors would really have to put themselves out there. And don't get me wrong, big companies would send out screeners or promos as well, but the best gems were the odd ducks. And in the early 90s, with the indie boom, it was a great time for screeners. Sometimes you just get a VHS tape and it would just have a regular printer label with a title and a contact number. Those movies were always way more interesting for me to discover, not just the film itself and the story, but sometimes people you would see crop up in movies later on as they built their career. And this is all pre-internet, so you'd just be like, okay, there's nothing out there. Let's indeed see if there is something out there. Spoiler alert, there's something out there. What I would do is pick a few promo tapes and then on Friday invite anyone I knew to come over and we'd watch them, start to finish. And the best thing was we were all watching them in a group. Every promo tape had a scroll along the bottom, and every few minutes it would read, "This tape is for promotional purposes only." And we would, of course, every once in a while, when it would go across the bottom, chant along with it, "This tape is for promotional purposes only." Which means we probably missed a lot of the movies, but it was a fun thing to do as a group. I remember on one occasion, I planned a little double feature. And it was a little known film called Reservoir Dogs. Yeah, no one had heard of this yet. And Man Bites Dog. Yeah. So I thought I was going for a dog theme. Turned out rather disturbing. But my point is people were always game for whatever films. Eventually the randomness led to me selecting films that I wanted specific kids to see. Everything from Evil Dead, which terrified two girls who had to walk home at night on a windy October night, thinking about the unseen evil force as the wind ripped through the trees and they crunched on the leaves. Such a memorable evening. I introduced people to Derek Jarman films, which I love, as well as screwball comedies like Brain Donors. Nobody was judging, we weren't rating them, we weren't mocking them. We were just there to sort of absorb these wonderful stories that people had made. And it was a really magical time. Speaking of magic, let's get to the episode. The film is Teen Witch, the guest is a witch, and this is VHS. Hello, and welcome to VHS. I'm your host, Dirk Marshall, and I'm joined in the studio today by Juliet, a witch.
Hi, Dirk. How are you?
Good, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for asking me.
The other title I could have used was Witchcraft Practitioner.
Right. I kind of like that because it's the way I look at witchcraft is sort of a crafty process to me. It is.
Okay.
So it's like a practice. Some people look at it like a religion. I mean, you can ask witches and they all have a separate opinion. For me, it's more of a creative process. So I like witchcraft practitioner.
Got it. Okay, and your website, should people want to follow along visually, is MAGICKWITHAK. That's magic with a K. On Instagram, you are magic with a K. You are Higgy_witch on Twitter.
So I guess it's Hygge.
Hygge.
Is the right?
Okay.
It's the Danish term for. I mean, basically, it's a coziness.
Okay.
Yes.
HYGGE_witch on Twitter, and Magic with a K on Facebook.
Yes.
Your website, I just wanted to mention, has a lot of fantastic items. Personally, I love the shirts.
Oh, thanks.
I really like, there's a sort of classic witch with a cauldron situation that's lovely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the things sort of have like a slightly gothy kind of angle. Mm-hmm.
There's also a lot of other things. I see something sitting on the table in front of me here.
So it's a little spell bottle. I've been kind of adding those to the shop lately. Little witch bottles, and basically they're a way to focus your intention. This one's a sea witch bottle.
And so then, is it just for display, or?
You can use it to kind of meditate on, just kind of as a tool to kind of people use it for manifesting things. So there are love bottles and money draw bottles where you put particular items in the bottle that you're trying to attract.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm. And it's sort of like you can have that and carry it with you and just have it a way to like focus what you're looking for onto this bottle, and it's like a manifest tool basically.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much.
Of course.
And up top, I'd also like to address my own ignorance in something that you were so wonderful to clarify. I was under the idea that a witch and a Wiccan were similar entities.
Yes, they are. But you can be Wiccan.
Okay.
And you are a witch. But you can be a witch and not be Wiccan.
Okay.
Because Wicca is actually a specific religious practice.
Okay.
It is, I think we talked about this before, it's recognized by the U.S. military now. It's actually a recognized religion.
Okay.
So there's a very not strict, but they have their own process in how they go about rituals and deities. Whereas a lot of people are what they call eclectic witches, which you can just do whatever you want, worship whoever you want. It could be religious or not religious. For me, it's not necessarily as religious. It's more of a craft. I mean, the movie The Craft.
Right.
That's kind of why it's titled that. It's sort of a creative process, like I was saying before. So you can be both, or you can be one or the other.
Okay.
And paganism is sort of like the umbrella term.
Yeah, why does that always seem like in pop culture anyway, when you see a witch, there's usually like Satan involved.
Yeah.
Pentagrams. Is the pentagram...
Pentagram is part of the, all witchcraft religions. It's a pagan symbol.
Okay.
But it's not associated with Satan, which... people have turned it into that.
Yeah, I think maybe a lot of people don't understand what paganism is, maybe?
Paganism is just the umbrella kind of term for more earth-based religions, and more of, I would say, like, Greek deities, Roman deities.
Okay.
It's kind of where Christianity came from,
actually.
Like, basically the Catholics came in, and the Roman Catholic Church came in and took over, and they needed to kind of get the locals kind of on board with their new religion when they conquered their countries. And so they took basically all these things from paganism, holidays, Christmas, all these things came from paganism originally, and they just changed the dates, they just kind of tweaked it a little bit, and, put Jesus and God in place of the pagan deities.
Oh, it's like a reboot.
Yeah, sort of like, hey, we're gonna adopt some of your stuff, just make it ours, Sure. And so it got the people who already lived in these countries, they were familiar with it.
Okay.
So they just kind of, it was easily adopted for them. That was kind of the philosophy on that. Wow. So a lot, and people don't realize a lot of holidays are kind of based in paganism. So paganism is sort of just like the umbrella of like, you're not following a necessarily organized religion. And it's more earth-based and maybe based in...
But not necessarily satanic.
No, not at all. I wouldn't say it is at all, because, if you don't follow Christianity as a religion, then you don't believe in Satan.
Right. So as someone who's like a witch practitioner, is it a lot of eye rolling when you see all these witch things come out, or do you just kind of be like, do you take it with a grain of salt? Because like we just had a conversation about some very big, broad things that all get somehow mashed together. Like Sabrina, the Teenage Witch, the new series newest series on Netflix, it's very, very Lucifer-y.
Yeah, I did see a few episodes of that. I haven't watched the whole thing.
It's very, very fun, very comic booky, but it is a very skewed idea of what a witch is.
Yeah, I guess my view is to take it with a grain of salt, because it's kind of like that show, for example, is a little bit tongue-in-cheek about it, I would say.
Right, yeah.
And a lot of them are like Coven, American Horror Story Coven, if you've seen that.
Yeah.
I think it's done for dramatic effect. And that's what gets people sort of opinionated about it.
Right.
I think it also, some witches do practice like that. There are witches that use deity, or they worship deities or do rituals with deities that are more on the dark side.
Right.
I mean, Satan is just sort of like a word for like a darker deity, I would say.
Sure.
So that's kind of the way I look at that too, is some people actually might practice like that. Because it's not, it's if you're Wiccan, you have your way of doing it, but everyone else can sort of pick who they want to do rituals with. I mean, some witches, they will do a deity, a darker deity for a specific purpose, and then the next day they'll do one with a different deity. So it's not necessarily like you're confined to just worshiping Satan, or you're worshiping, this god or that god. So
right.
It's just much more fluid, I think. So I would say like a show like Sabrina is like, maybe they were doing that. Maybe that was their thing.
Sure. Well, then there's something like Practical Magic. Mm-hmm. Did you see that?
Yep.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
It's a wild movie.
Right.
But in that one, it seems up until a point, it's more of like intentions, like you had mentioned. And they're doing spells and things, but it's like so widely accepted that they have a shop that sells all these herbs and things in it.
Yeah.
Which, I love those shops. So the first shop like that I went into was in Seattle. It's still not, I don't think it's still there in Capitol Hill. But just walking in and seeing all the various bottles and things and books and the smell from dried herbs and rose petals, and it was really, it felt awesome. And like, not forbidden, but like, I don't know, like mysterious. Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
That's how I basically was introduced to witchcraft, was going, because I grew up in Salem, Massachusetts, and the shop at the time was run by Laurie Cabot, who's the official witch of Salem. She has that title.
Wow.
Yep. And she was the only shop there at the time. And yeah, you would just walk in and it'd be these amazing smells and all these crystals and things to look at. And was kind of, as soon as I started going in there from a young age, I was like, I want to do this. This looks like fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
But we're not here just to specifically talk about that. We were brought together today by the film Teen Witch. Was this a first-time watch for you?
It was. I had vaguely heard of it, but hadn't seen it.
Yeah, I had not seen it. It was not carried in my father's video store when I was a kid. But every October, my wife and I do the 31 and 31, like a lot of people do.
Oh, yeah.
Different horror movie every day of October.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's very fun. But I like to program it out so the days have different themes.
That's good.
And that forces me to not just pick favorites, because I, of course, have many favorites.
Yeah.
And each theme of each day of the week changes every year, except for Wednesdays, which we keep as Witchy Wednesdays.
Nice.
So there's always something new. And so this year I thought, okay, I'm going to track down Teen Witch. And I watched nothing about it, no trailers or anything, which I recommend everyone, if you have not seen Teen Witch at this point, to stop this, watch Teen Witch, and then put this back on. Because it's pretty amazing from the first moment. Which we'll get to.
Right.
But I also chose this film because it has a huge cult following. And I feel like most witch films are sort of in the same vein, same color palette, same sort of story over and over again. And I feel like with Teen Witch, it's safe to say they were trying to do something a little different.
Yeah, which I'm still not sure what that is.
I'm not, maybe the third watch.
It's kind of like a Pretty in Pink.
Yeah.
With a witch.
Yes.
Kind of.
Kind of is. I mean, it is also...
It's sort of that 80s thing.
They were definitely trying to rip off Teen Wolf's success. That's why it's Teen Witch, I'm guessing. At the time of this recording, it can be rented at Movie Madness, found on Amazon Prime, Vudu, and iTunes. But I recommend, if you're not going to go to Movie Madness, to buy the DVD. It's beautiful, and I think it deserves to be seen in such a beautiful way. Not streamed on YouTube in a terrible, terrible version.
Yeah.
The synopsis of the film is: high school misfit Louise, at a loss for romance, discovers magical abilities, but the teenage witch finds that she cannot conjure herself true love. So what? That's actually the synopsis. That's really true also with the film. It's kind of the kind of moves through, and then at a certain point they're just like, meh, but whatever. And it's just like, oh, okay. Nice dedication. To put the film in context, Teen Witch came out in 1989. The director Dorian Walker had made Making the Grade in 84, Teen Witch in 89, and then nothing, and then returned 10 years later to do Baby Songs ABC.
Okay.
Yeah. Interesting. Cinematographer Mark Rachowski did Sorority House Massacre in 86. Bon Jovi's Living on a Prayer video. Brian Adams' Heat of the Night.
Whoa.
Ozzy Osbourne Crazy Train. Fleetwood Mac Tango in the Night. Teen Witch in 1988, which came out in 89. Paula Abdul Opposites Attract, which comes up in another episode. Prince Bat Dance. And also directed Poison's Nothing But a Good Time.
Wow.
So the cinematography is one of my favorite things in this film, which, I mean, it's got layers and layers of favorite things, but the way that this movie looks is like all of those 80s music videos. I mean, it just, it's shot so much in that vein. It's, and that's what won me over, just in the first moments of it, with the sexy saxophone intro, and it just looked so good that I was like...
It's a music video. The opening credits are a music video.
Yeah. Sarah and I looked at each other on the couch and we were just like, are you seeing what I'm seeing? Because it's just the credits.
Yeah. Yeah.
The editor is Nathan Zahiv. I think it's Nathan. He did Going Bananas in 87, Deep Space in 87, Teen Witch in 88, Dark Tide in 94. The songs in the film were written by Larry Weir, who's related to Michael Damian, who covered the song Rock On from the Dream a Little Dream soundtrack, which reached #1 on the Billboard Top 100.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep, Michael Damian.
Larry's my hero after this movie.
Oh my gosh. And there's some great stuff we'll talk about with Larry on... you can find videos of him discussing the amazing work he did for this soundtrack. Actors, we got Robin Lively, Karate Kid 3 in 89, Teen Witch in 89, Twin Peaks in 1990, playing Lena Budding Milford.
Yes, I remember her from that.
The mayor's girlfriend who wins a beauty pageant in season 2. Doogie Howser in 91 and Dream a Little Dream in 1995.
And she's also Blake Lively's stepsister, I believe.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Whoa. We have actor Dan Gauthier. He's from Prineville, Oregon, so you gotta mention that.
Nice.
He did a lot of television, mostly, and then did some big shows like 90210 and Melrose Place. Next actor, Joshua John Miller, the highlight of the film, I think most people will agree. Halloween 3, Season of the Witch in 82, River's Edge in 86, Near Dark in 87, Teen Witch in 89, Class of 1999, oddly enough in the year 1990, Death Warrant in 1990, and he plays a harmonica in the Rhythm Nation 1814 music video by Janet Jackson. He also co-wrote with his life partner M.A. Fortin, The Final Girls, which is an amazing film. Have you seen it yet?
No.
Okay, gotta see that.
Okay.
If you want to see a film that is a self-reflexive horror comedy with female characters that have an emotional depth and something to say, then I highly recommend that movie. I really hope we get to see more films from them, so fingers crossed. Dick Sargent is in this movie, and he was on Bewitched.
Yay.
So it's kind of nice to have a... He was married to a witch before, and now he's married to
He played Darren
a non-witch.
Yep.
He was in Mr... Oh, wait, no. That's all I say about that. So we'll cut that up. Actor Mandy Ingber, Mr. Mom in 82, Teen Witch in 89, Exit to Eden in 94, and The Relic in 1997.
She was the best friend.
She's the best friend. Yeah, she's the little girl, I think, in Mr. Mom, which is pretty great. Actor Zelda Rubinstein.
Awesome.
You know what? She might be my fave over Joshua John. It's a tie, probably.
She's great.
Poltergeist in 82, 16 Candles in 84, Poltergeist 2 The Other Side in 86, Anguish in 87, Poltergeist 3 in 88, Teen Witch in 89, Little Witches in 96, not a sequel.
Okay.
And I guess that's all I had to say about Zelda.
Okay.
But lastly, Dana Torrey needs to be mentioned as the art director. Previously, he'd worked on Heathers a year before this, and I think it really shows. Yeah, the art direction is pretty spot on.
Heather's great movie.
Oh, yeah. It's so good. So right at the start of the film, we have the sexy sax intro. There's instantly a music video for a song called Never Gonna Be the Same Again by Laurie Russo, which I'll never be the same again after seeing that sequence. I tried to track the song down. I think I found a compact disc on Amazon, so I'm thinking about pulling the trigger on that. Then we get to meet the younger brother, and we get a small glimpse about her family, because the pacing of this film is one of the more original things.
Richie, get out of there, you little pinhead! Touch me and die, lady.
We get a lot of scenes which are under a minute, basically. It's just like, here's the mom, here's the dad, here's the brother, the classic eat your breakfast, I don't have time scene. And that goes right into the first rapping scene we have, where they rap the high school blues in a hallway.
Oh, that's right. That was the first musical interlude in this movie.
Drinking out of town and we're feeling cool. Don't really need to be hanging in school. It's okay, we got nothing to lose. Can't you see, baby, it's a high school blues.
Yeah, this movie has some of the most aggressive dance moves. Like, it's a lot of reaching in and holding your opposite shoulders with your hands, and then throwing your elbows back so they almost touch behind your back, and then right back to a lot of open and closing, and
and the part about it that's funny is no one in the hallway seems to notice this at all
or care. Really. Nobody's.
That's what they do.
I would have the most disgusted look on my face if someone burst out into a horrible rap like that.
It's like maybe they were the theater kids or something.
Yes, exactly. That would make sense. But apparently they're kind of like the jocks, the cool kids.
Oh, I took it as like they were sort of like the bad boys.
Oh, yeah. That's what I meant.
They're kind of like the 50s version of the bad boy, though.
I think that's how Larry was imagining it when he wrote the raps. We then get to see her at her locker, and she shows up late to class, but there's no reason why. She was just at her locker, like 10 feet from the class, and then she walks in late, but we don't know why. It's so weird. It's just so unnecessary to introduce that part for, I don't know.
Well, our honor student has graced us with her presence. Apparently, skipping grades is not enough for Miss Miller. She feels she can also afford to waste our valuable time as well.
You gotta set up the altercation with the teacher immediately.
Yeah, to show he's such a jerk. Yep. But, like, she was late. So it would have been better if, like, she showed up on time, and I
Especially,
don't know. But then a note gets passed to the teacher, and he reads it aloud.
Oh, yeah.
And it's the love note about Brad.
It's your worst nightmare.
He pressed his lips against mine. But he didn't stop there. Soon, every inch of my body was covered with Brad's kisses.
And then we get an amazing musical cue as she's in the bathroom, and her friend's giving her a little heart-to-heart talk that lasts somewhere around 37 seconds. It takes such a dramatic turn and then completely undoes that dramatic turn in the next thing, which is probably part of why this has such a huge cult following, is that it keeps moving at such an unbelievable pace.
Yeah.
But not really towards anything. But we'll get to that. Then we get the average girls' locker room scene. I never spent any time in a girls' locker room, but I imagine it's exactly like this, where a lady walks in and says she has the new cheer, and they press play on a boombox, and they all start performing the song I Like Boys.
Right. Which isn't a cheer, and then everyone knows it already.
Yeah.
So it's not that new.
It's so bizarre that it's not a cheer, and everyone knows it and performs it in its entirety of like 3 minutes. This is the longest part of the film up to date.
But it was like this weird comedy that I didn't really understand where that was coming from at all. And it's like, are you trying to make this movie a comedy? Is it a musical?
Yes.
At that point, you're really kind of confused.
Very confused. And I don't like musicals, but I don't either. 100% all in on I Like Boys. By the time that they are on each other's shoulders with giant towels covering, because this is not this is a film the whole family can watch. But it is mind-boggling. And it keeps cutting back to her as if she's the only person they're performing this for. And they don't even seem to like her, so it's just so weird.
Yeah, and she's sort of not surprised either that this is happening.
Like, it
she's
happens
just sort of
all
like,
the time. Oh, another cheer.
Yeah, here they go.
Here goes 4 minutes of my life while they perform crazy intros and outros of showers and on top of lockers and...
And I will just tell you that that does not happen.
Oh, it doesn't.
In the women's locker room. No.
Doesn't happen in
Never
the guys'
happened.
locker room either. Just a lot of saggy parts. We then get a dreamy music sequence as Brad is playing football and she sees him take his shirt off in slow motion and then throw footballs through tires and do sit-ups and so many just sexy things that Brads can do.
Yeah, and I think he had the soft filter on him.
Yes, he did. Yeah, they Vaselined the lens.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it was, there's a few points in this movie where they do that.
Yes.
And it's really weird because they usually do that for the women, so I kind of love that they switched
Brad.
it up and he's sort of like the sex object of the movie.
Well, I was thinking about this. The target audience for Teen Wolf would be, because he's going to be covered in hair for a lot of it. It's not really, I mean, there's, I guess, some sex appeal for the Michael J. Fox pre-Wolf, but then once he's in the Wolf, it's, I guess, more for the guys to watch. So with Teen Witch, I was thinking they're going for a more female audience here. So they are going to, you know, Vaseline the lens for the Brad shots, you know, rather than for the ladies. I actually appreciate that part.
Yep.
Yeah, well done, Teen Witch.
Yeah.
But after that, we get a play tryout, and suddenly her thing that she's not ever going to be around Brad again. She's around Brad and auditioning for a play. She sadly doesn't get the part.
Yeah, like you said, it moves really, really fast.
Yeah,
so
really
it's
fast.
just bam, you know, you're at practice. Next thing you know, you're at an audition.
And she, in most movies, you would be like, I'm up for this role. I wonder if I get it. And then she'd go home and you'd have a scene with her parents and they'd be like, I hope you get the role. And then she wouldn't get the role. But in this movie, she's like, I'm up for the role. And then the teacher's just like, you didn't get it, in the same sentence.
And we're, yes, and we're to assume that it's because she's not popular.
Right.
I think that's what we're supposed to get from that.
Yeah.
And he's the most popular guy in school, and the girl does the cheer in the locker room. She ends up getting the part because she's a popular cheerleader.
Which is always how theater works in high school.
It kind of does.
Does it? In my school, those people didn't go in the theater. There was no jocks or
Oh, really?
cheerleaders
In my
in
high
the
school,
theater.
it was like that. It was a pretty small high school, so.
My high school was very small, but it was on the edge of society, I think. It was mostly, it was like an 80s film still. So there was the jocks, there was the hicks, and there was the freaks, which is what we were called, even though we were just thought we were kids. If you weren't the other two, then you're that. So our school was, I don't know if that was unique at the time or what. So the safest place was really in the theater program. So that's where we would all hide.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, you get less chews spit on you that way.
So you had no jocks and cheerleaders auditioning?
No, they did not. I think in my senior year they tried to force like the 4.0 students into getting into theater because they're like, these kids are getting too isolated. Get in there, and I don't know.
And probably for their college transcript. Something
like that. Yeah, it was weird.
Yeah,
I remember being like, what are these smart people doing here? But there they were. Marcia Malloy is the teacher. Most people will know her as Edna Crabapple on The Simpsons. Am I saying that right? She also followed up this film with My Mom's a Werewolf, and then Ghoulies Go to College.
Oh, okay.
So
I've seen her in a billion things.
Well, that's 2 werewolf
80s,
movies. So
yeah,
she did a lot of voice work as well.
Okay.
Then we get to a very important part of the film where Brad runs Robin off the road with his car. Probably because she's dressed like a private investigator.
Well, that was the 80s style.
Yeah.
You had the men's coat.
The men's coat.
And it was all everything was baggy.
Yeah. That is kind of another nice thing about this film, aiming possibly for the female audience, was that she's not like objectified. She's not shot in these ways that 80s films traditionally were shooting ladies, you know, where there's like side boob and so much like just unnecessary shirts that stop barely below your rib cage or whatever, you know. In this, she's dressed like
just like an average high schooler,
like John Candy or something, just a non-sexualized entity to a point.
Right, but I do think
there.
exactly, they do change that, but I think they overdid it on the
Yeah.
the overcoats and things
Right.
to make it obvious when they did switch it up.
They didn't give her glasses, though, which is the other
True.
classic move where they're like, she was a nerd and now
Right.
she's like a minx, you know, or
Yep.
whatever.
Yep.
The kids are saying minx, probably. Then Zelda offers her a palm reading. And I don't know anyone that does palm readings. But while I was in Palm Springs recently, I saw a psychic for the first time.
Oh, cool.
His name was Patrick Harrington, and he's a third-generation medium, which I wish I could ask all the questions about just the generations. Like, if it's passed down, I didn't know anything about that. It was in a store in Palm Springs called Crystal Fantasy, which, check it out on Instagram. They have, like, 1 million followers or something. It's pretty amazing. But yeah, I had a great time, so I recommend that anyone interested in seeing a psychic, just to see what's out there, to do so.
Yeah, here's what when she goes in for the palm reading.
Yeah.
There's a couple things I didn't like about that.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, first of all, she kind of forces it on her.
I will give you a palm reading at a special price.
Well, listen, I'm sorry. I really gotta go. So I'm kind of late already, and I just...
Don't worry. I like you. I like your cutesy little Punky Brewster face.
Zelda says in this scene that she likes her because she has a cute Punky Brewster face. And Robin Lively was on Punky Brewster, so
was.
that was pretty interesting that they introduced that part.
She makes her get a palm reading.
She does kind of drag her in
and she's
there.
like, how much money do you have?
Yeah,
And
that
she's
is
like,
a weird
I only
question.
have $3. And she's like, okay, give it to me now.
Mm-hmm.
And she does, you know.
Yeah.
Which is, the whole thing is, that's really odd because that would never happen.
Right.
The other thing is she kind of, it makes her appear like snake oil salesman-ish, kind of, which I didn't really appreciate because that's not really the way people approach palm readings, psychic
Right.
readings, anything like that. It's not really just like a money-making thing.
Well, and I imagine it's one of those situations where there are people that are just trying to make money off of things, and then there's other people. It's
Yeah,
like,
there's-
I always
yeah.
think about my parents. They say they're not religious. They have religion. But then the person you see that's advertising their religion is the crazy person on the corner with the giant signs that's saying mostly hate speech.
Yes.
And they're like, oh, great, this is what we're known for now? You know, it's like, I'd imagine there's the same thing.
Sure. I mean, witches are people too,
Yeah.
so everyone's different. Some
It's a great
people are-
shirt.
Oh, it is. Yeah, you gotta
Add-
make one of
add
those.
that to
Good
the
idea.
store.
Good idea. Yeah, I mean, just people have their own way of going. Maybe by this movie, it gives the impression she's sort of jaded
Yeah.
with the whole thing.
Every life, really.
Yes, with life. So that comes across in how she's treating Louise when she comes in. She's just like, it's a transaction. She doesn't really care. But that's more to do with her as a person.
Right.
I guess my feeling on it was like, wow, that's your first that's how you're going to portray the elder witch in this
Right.
movie, as someone who's jaded and just out to take people's money.
Yeah, it's
You
an
know?
interesting choice for the, like, Mr. Miyagi figure of
Yeah.
the movie. It's like, this is the anchor for her and where the wisdom's going to come from, and it's coming from a pretty crappy place.
Yeah, and I don't really think she gets that much wisdom from
No,
her.
no.
Which is, she ends up being probably the more wise of the two. So that's
Yeah.
interesting.
My God in heaven. What did you say your name was?
Louise Miller?
Miller. It's you.
What do you mean, it's me?
You're not a mark. You're one of us.
One of who?
So this is the beginning of her journey as a witch, of knowing that she has this history and whatnot. And while you did touch in the beginning on your start of being a witch, I was wondering if you could just flesh that out a little bit more. For instance, the stores that we were talking about in the beginning, how did you find out about those stores, that store?
Well, I lived in town, and my mom actually brought me
Okay.
for the first time. I think I was in high school, maybe, or
And was she like Wiccan or
No, not at
witch
all.
practitioner?
no, my mom's Catholic.
She's Catholic. But
So-
she didn't have any
No,
issue taking you there.
Yeah, which is interesting now when I think back. But
I think it's great.
She loves crystals. Like she to this day, she is very into crystals and things like that. And I think it's because I grew up in Salem, it was not as maybe unusual as it might have been in some other places. And Lori Cabot, who owned the shop, she made a point to go outside whenever she went out wearing her black robes.
Oh.
Like she was trying to educate people basically, and to make it not intimidating for everyone to know that witches exist and they're just like everyone else. So we would see her and her daughters at the mall and things, and she would always be wearing her robes. So I just thought that was the coolest thing.
Did she have the hat on too?
No, no hat, just long robes. And if she was outside on the street, she had these 2 black dogs, and she'd be walking her dogs. And I was like, what? You know, it was just super impressive.
Yeah, that's
I just thought that was awesome. In a time when that town really wasn't like that. Now it's very touristy. And there are tons of shops everywhere.
Right.
And at Halloween, if you go there on Halloween, it's just like a carnival.
Wow.
Because it's so accepted now. But back then, she was the only one doing it. And so I really have so much respect for that.
Yeah.
That takes a lot of guts.
Yes. Especially to be the intelligent person in the situation. That's like, I'm going to educate people. You know?
Yeah, and it was hard.
There's people that want to be different, and I'm doing air quotes on a podcast, because they want to stand out, or they want to be like a rebel in the face of other people. But there's also people who are a certain way and represent that to the world, and I think that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, she had 2 daughters, and they would get harassed. I mean, you know, in high school, they're gonna find it something to pick on. So they got picked on, and she got picked on when she first got there. Just going to the grocery store and whatnot, people would say things to her, and so it's amazing to me that she did that. And now she, excuse me, that shop is still in existence. She sold it to another witch who owns it, and she started a new one. So she's in her 80s now. Wow. And she does readings. She does psychic readings for people and tarot readings. And she's on her 2nd shop. And I believe her daughters, she makes jewelry, like Wiccan jewelry.
Do you know the name of the new shop?
Enchantment.
Okay. And it's
I'm
in
actually
Salem.
going, yes, it's in Salem on Pickering Wharf, if anyone knows where that is.
Cool.
Yeah, and I'm going in September to do a little,
Oh, awesome.
like, market research, and I haven't been there, so I'm going to check it out. So there's tons of places there I haven't been to, because I think it's been 10 years since I've been back. So.
Oh, wow. I'm so excited to hear how it's changed.
I'm very excited.
That's so cool. And it's so interesting to hear the story about your mom being Catholic and taking you to there. It makes sense with the previous conversation we were having about, like, the whole Satanism misconceptions and I just love that. People always tend to focus on differences, I think, and so it's neat to when people are just open to what's out in the world, you know, rather than just damning it.
Right. My mom gave me my first tarot deck.
That's so cool.
I was in high school. Yeah, I still have it.
Wow.
Yeah, and she just was always kind of interested in those things, and so it wasn't intimidating for me to start doing it because she was not afraid of it, I guess.
Right. That's so awesome. And unfortunately, this segues right into the sex education part of the film, which is the part that is wild that this played on Disney. They must have cut this scene.
Oh, you think so?
Supposedly this played on the Disney Channel a lot because Fred does a little rap about penises.
Yeah, but they don't really say anything.
No, but he says, I mean, just a lot of things I don't think Disney would be cool with.
Yeah, acronyms or...
They're all just words, like, you know, slang terms for penises. But Fred does this rap in the classroom. It's another amazing musical accompaniment to the film.
And people are really, everyone in the class enjoys it very much.
Yes, very much so.
Does anyone know what this might represent?
A Roger, a love wand, joystick, dong, zipper lizard, tallywhacker, trouser snake, schlong.
That's enough, Fred. Thank you.
No problem.
They enjoy it way more than probably anybody else.
Like in real life, you would be like, dude.
I would be...
Shut up and sit down.
Nowadays, it would be really bad. But back in the 80s...
Yes, that would never...
Nowadays, Fred would not attend that school anymore.
He would be expelled immediately.
Yes, exactly. She's then invited to a dance by a real creep.
Oh,
And then she puts it out into the world that she wishes that Brad would look at her. And he does. Mm-hmm. And that's the first little bit of magic that we get. Oh, I skipped over the part where she found out from Zelda that she, on her 16th birthday, is when she becomes a witch.
And at this point, we had already seen her birthday happen.
Yeah, I think so.
Where she gets a really ugly sweater.
Yes, it's a pretty good sweater from Dad.
Yeah. But then, that is also completely not true. People don't just magically get magical powers.
Yeah, it's
it doesn't all of a sudden happen on your 16th birthday.
Like the screenwriter was like thinking of a quinceanera. Quinceanera? Anyway, it's like the screenwriter was thinking that on the 16th birthday, or you're a woman now, therefore you're a witch.
Yeah. I guess it's the coming of age thing where it's sort of I think it's the same idea with Poltergeist, right?
Yeah.
It's the same as like the energy that you're creating when you're a teen because you're going through all these hormonal things that triggers these things.
Have you seen the movie Ginger Snaps?
No.
It's a really good movie about girls becoming women, but also at the same time, the monstrosity of what happens to your body, they turn into werewolves.
Oh,
it's great. The first one is really good. It's really well made.
Oh my God. He's looking right at you. I wish he'd just come over.
Then Brad comes over, and that's the super magical point, and that's her first sort of intention. Would that be an intention?
Yeah.
Okay.
For sure. But he doesn't know why he's coming over.
Right.
He looks really confused.
He does.
Because he was dancing with his girlfriend 1 minute,
right.
and then all of a sudden he just leaves.
Yeah,
his
he
girlfriend's
just walks
like,
over.
"What are you doing?"
And then from doing that little moment of magic, she's then in the car with the creepy guy, and he tries to be very gross and lecherous towards her.
Yeah.
Oh, how would you like it if somebody groped you?
I love it, baby. Come on. Hey, I got an idea. Let's do it while we're moving.
Stop it!
And she makes him disappear.
It's amazing.
So she's pretty powerful. So he's gone. And then we find out that she can't drive a stick for some reason. They have to throw that in there. It's just like...
Just more hijinks, I guess,
It's like, well, couldn't she just wish in that moment that
right.
she... In this world?
There you go.
But she doesn't. And
she
then
grabs the steering wheel and...
just moves it back and forth.
Yeah.
And then she goes home, and in a wonderful scene, turns her brother into a dog.
Who's a complete pain in the ass, so...
Yes.
You're not upset when he gets turned into a dog.
You think you're hot stuff because you went to a dance. Dream on! Nobody wants to date you because you're a dog. A dog! A dog!
No, he had it coming. And then he gets put in the bath, bringing back the idea that her spells can be broken with water.
Yes.
Which, is that a thing that
it's
you know?
not.
It's not a thing.
It's not, but I think they established that after the fact.
Right.
A little bit with Madame Zelda. Madame Serena, sorry.
Yeah.
I keep confusing her
I
real name.
know, because her real name is pretty magical.
Yes. And she says with water, because she's not that powerful, water can negate her spell.
I don't even know how I changed him back.
You didn't. Beginner spells are very weak. They wear off. Water reverses them. They'll get stronger.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they all of a sudden just have a bathtub filled with water ready to go.
There it is. I mean, I guess he was going to take a bath anyway, or...
With bubbles.
Right. It's very strange.
While he was like cooking something. He was baking or something.
He's a multitasker, I feel like.
Yeah.
He's pretty great. Then we have a little moment at a carousel at night.
Ani Sumunaro Wawan.
Where we hear, the power is in the word, be careful what you say.
Oh yeah, this is great. And she's...
Which is one of my favorite parts of the realism in the film, because it's actually a message that I think is helpful to think about.
Yep.
And in thinking about intentions, as we touched on before, I don't think that that's a bad thing for anybody, really.
No, it's great, actually. I mean, when you're doing a spell of any kind, and this is, like you said, this is good in general, when you're focusing your attention on something that you want, it's typical in a spell to say, for the good of all, harming none. Because a lot of times the way you phrase something it might happen literally. And you might not know exactly how to phrase what you're saying so that something doesn't accidentally happen that you don't want to.
Yeah.
So it's common to put in a phrase like that so that you won't hurt anybody. Like, the example people always use is you want money, $1 million, and then a relative of yours dies.
Right.
And you inherit the money. So that kind of tells the universe that you don't want to harm anyone.
Right.
In getting your intention.
So
that's along the lines of what you're talking about. It's, you try and be as precise as you can about asking for what you want or how to manifest what you want, but you can't always be perfect at it.
Sure.
So it's best to kind of, include something that the universe can, lets you off the hook, basically, from hurting anyone else or hurting yourself. So I think she kind of is learning that in this scene a little bit. She learns that through her book.
Yeah.
Did she get that from Madame Serena? She gave that to her.
I think so.
I don't know where she got that.
Yeah.
She's experimenting with the weather, which is very interesting.
She is. And then she casts a truth spell in the locker room.
Astroth, Barbos, Tetragrammaton, Theos, Ishnos, Arthetos.
That's right.
And then now the ladies are all telling each other what they really think of each other, which is not a lot.
Kiki, your voice is lousy. You sound like Pee Wee Herman. What? She's right. You cannot carry a tune.
What do you mean? Yes, I can.
She's just being honest.
Someone says, "Hey, what did you just say?" And she goes, "Oh, it's a new U2 song."
Yeah, it's really cool.
Really?
Uh-huh. It's an import.
Which is very funny. And then Zelda turns a frog into a love slave.
Omni transformatum.
That was so creepy.
Yeah, so this next to the penis rap is a very salacious part of the film, where Zelda has turned a frog into a man that she is going to make love to, and he still makes frog sounds.
Oh, God.
What do you want to say? How long I've waited to hear these words. Speak, speak.
It's horrible.
It's
and then,
so gross.
no, but that was actually Louise. She had to use Louise, didn't she, to get that? Because she apparently
to steal her
doesn't...
power.
Yeah, and she doesn't have as much power anymore or something.
Yeah.
So it seems through this movie that she's using her for her own purpose. She wants money. She wants a boyfriend.
Yeah,
whatever.
she is. I think this scene was the inspiration for The Shape of Water. Where the fish man has sex with the lady.
Right.
Now Zelda has sort of created the prequel to that. Like, she maybe made the fish man, and Guillermo del Toro saw this and was like,
he's like, this needs to be a movie.
Yeah.
This whole thing needs to be a movie.
This one scene needs to be a lot longer. And then we get to another great scene, which is just called, "Where are all the chairs?"
Where are all the chairs?
Chairs? Being reupholstered.
Oh,
where
yeah,
Brad comes
in her bedroom.
Brad comes into her room.
Because we all have tons of chairs in our bedroom.
Brad comes into her room and he just says, "Where are all the chairs?" And she's trying to get him to sit on the bed to cast a spell. And he's just so confused at the lack of chairs in a girl's bedroom. And then the dad comes in and he says, "Where are all the chairs?" And she tries to cover it up more.
Oh, where are all the chairs?
I moved them so I could exercise.
And then he wants to go get chairs.
Yes, he went to go get some. And then the brother comes in because we got to keep it going. And he's like, "Where are all the chairs?"
Where are all the chairs? Never mind, just get out and leave us alone, or you'll be having dog food for dinner.
And then she goes, "Ugh, fine," and then opens her closet to reveal a stack of chairs that she had removed from her room because apparently she has like a book club or something that goes up into her room. It's just, it's so crazy.
At that moment, felt like it was appropriate to pull out all the chairs.
Yeah, she's like,
it's,
And Brad just looks clueless as always.
Yeah, he's confused, but she didn't really try that hard to do the spell. She was almost done with it.
Yeah.
She literally could have finished.
Yeah, it makes...
And he would have been just as confused.
Yes.
And it wouldn't have mattered.
Poor Brad.
I know.
Then we get the voodoo doll scene with the teacher.
Which is amazing.
Yes,
This is one of my favorite parts.
Yes, she starts disrobing the doll, and the teacher.
And it's huge.
It's a huge doll. It is not a dainty thing. She made a full fabric doll with clothes.
Mm-hmm.
She learned how to stitch sleeves. I mean, it's pretty amazing. He takes his coat off, and she drops it, and he falls downstairs. There's he walks into a car wash because it gets thrown into a washing machine, which makes no sense.
Right.
And really, his body would just be mangled in the air, but instead he goes through a car wash. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. He deserves it though.
Oh yeah,
he's horrible.
Awful.
And that would never happen now, of course. This is what's interesting about looking at an 80s movie is a lot of this stuff would never happen. I mean, that guy would be fired immediately.
The whole film would be like a serious thing. You know, they would take this Teen Witch movie and make it like super serious and, you know, you'd just be such a bummer. But instead, we have a scene like this where two girls are riding on their bikes and one says, "Men are like another species, very hard to get through to." Which is such a good line.
Yeah.
And leads us into the iconic scene, which we have a video posted to the website.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. It's
awesome.
It's top that.
Everyone has to watch it.
I'm king, and they know it. When I snap my fingers, everybody says sure. I'm hot, and you're not. But if you want to hang with me, I'll give it one shot. Top that.
It is what the movie is mostly known for. People do the performances of this sequence live. And it's a rap that was written later. It was a reshoot for the movie, which is insane to think of the movie without this. They wanted to add a rap, which means all the other raps existed except for this one, which is crazy.
Yeah, and it was kind of like they felt like they weren't happy with the movie.
Right.
I went back and I watched some things on YouTube, and they weren't the executives weren't that excited about it, so they wanted to add this to it, and all the actors were like, no.
Horrified.
I do not want to do this.
Yeah, but this is why I'm not an actor. They're contractually bound to do it. So they had to do the rap.
Yeah.
Their voices were not used.
Oh, I know, that was...
Yeah.
Supersonic, idiotic, disconnected, not respected. Who would ever really want to go and top that? Such a waste of pretty face, but hanging in your nose space. I wish that you would take a look and really stop that. Top that.
They are someone else's voices, but you can't really tell for her. She seems like she really nails it. I buy it. Her conviction is fantastic.
She was great.
Yeah.
I think it was just
really good.
Over the top goofiness.
Yes.
And I don't even know what else to say about it.
No.
You have to experience it.
It's really something you'll probably experience a few times, too.
And now, unfortunately, it's always going to be in my head, and sometimes I will start singing that song.
Me too. Or someone will say something and I'll just hear "top that" in my head, and I'm just like, oh man, okay, what'd I do to myself?
Yep.
Then we have Zelda cooking and doing more spells.
Is it a revenge potion or a bad luck spell or what?
It's goulash.
Which brings me to a question. So she has like a magic talisman in the movie.
Yes.
Are objects, crystals, things like that, magical on their own, or do you bestow them with like intentions, or do spells have to be cast on things? And just
yeah, I would say
it's like a chicken or the egg question, I guess.
I think in this movie they were trying to say that this had been passed down through generations, right?
Yeah.
And this was her. I mean, I think they didn't say anything like that, but this is what I'm taking from it: is it helped her focus her power and intention, because you saw her touch it when she was trying to do a spell.
Yes.
And she grabbed onto it and she focused her intention on it. So that's essentially what you would do. You could take any object and do that, like the spell bottle, or a lot of people do it with rings or jewelry.
But the spirit of what you're doing exists sort of in you. You're just channeling it to something, or using that to remind you of your intentions, or...
I guess you would look at it like sort of programming it.
Okay.
With your intention.
Okay.
Like, you know, you could take a crystal and do that and hold it and sort of meditate on it and sort of put your intention into it, that you're going to carry this so that you have good luck, or it's going to help you make more money, or whatever your intention is. Or for her, it was like love. She wanted a boyfriend, Brad.
Sure.
And so it was like a love intention or whatnot, but it's a thing to, when you hold it, maybe you focus your energy more strongly on that intention.
So it's like we were talking about before, like when people like put just something out into the world, like putting, I'm going to use the word vibes, which is lame, but like, you know, good intentions or good things out into the world in hopes for them to return, like you hear about in things like The Secret and things like that.
Yep.
Like there seem like different names and practices for kind of keeping yourself on track for what your goals are.
Yeah, and The Secret is exactly the same thing, really.
Yeah, just rebranded.
Yeah, and it's less intimidating because it's not from a witchcraft perspective.
Sure.
It's more metaphysical, sort of new age kind of idea, but it's the same idea.
Okay, because in movies, I see a lot of things where we honestly just think like, oh, it's a magic rock or it's a magic crown in medieval movies. So I just wanted to show the differentiation between those two things, because it's like she has to have this power to then, you know, it's within her or within all of us, this ability to, you know.
Exactly. It's somehow along the way that object got programmed, probably by somebody, like in whatever movie you're talking about. There was probably some point in history where that became magical for some reason, and we don't know where or how, but that's how it happened. There's also a way when you meditate to try and connect with the object itself and you know, kind of project into it a little bit, or the crystal, and kind of like try and connect with it, because crystals have energy like everything does. It's just on a lower frequency, and so that's also, so it does have its own innate properties. So a little bit is the object, but I would say it's mostly intention put into it. Yep. So her little necklace, that's what that was.
Okay. The next scene in the movie is them sneaking into a Shauna concert.
Yeah, which is another scene that I didn't really understand why I was there.
Yeah, it's just all of a sudden they're like, here's this superstar, because we got to have a Madonna type person in here or something, and so...
Was she a real person?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I was wondering, she kind of was like a Paula Abdul-ish.
Yeah, but... she's still performing the songs from the original intro.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, same artist, I believe.
I think this was to show that she could control anyone.
Yep. So she controls Shauna. Shauna leaves the stage, gives her her special jacket, and says, "I gotta go. They're taping this." Which
are they making a video?
They're actually filming her, and she made her leave her video performance to give her her jacket, and then she'll now perform the rest of it without the jacket. Which is a
pretty sweet jean jacket that has all these patches and stuff. So 80s.
It's really good. In the Lost Boys Lounge over here, you'll see Alex Winter wearing a similar jean jacket.
Yep.
It's pretty nice.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Then she casts the spell to become the cool kid. Here's the metamorphosis that we expected to see in a movie like this. We get several hair tosses, which I think is missing from Teen Wolf despite all of his hair. And then we get the every cool guy needs a popular girl rap, which is so disturbing.
It's really like sexual harassment.
Yeah, it's really, they're in a car, they're all rapping at her.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's my probably least favorite.
Yeah, that was not appropriate.
Then we get something, I think we're going to be on the same page here, a classic hiking scene through sunflowers to an abandoned house. And this is where it should turn into a horror movie.
So creepy.
It's so creepy. And then she removes her heels.
Gross.
There's so much saxophone. They're definitely breathing in fiberglass insulation and asbestos.
Yeah, would you take your shoes off in a place like that and
no,
walk around?
She takes them off and then puts them up like that's going to be better in this like broken down, dilapidated house that she's decided they're going to have sex in.
Oh my god. And then he's sort of... No one says anything because it's like another music
Brad's
video.
Still clueless.
Yes,
he's confused at what's happening the whole time.
Yeah.
But it's really something to behold. Because in the beginning of the film, we have her dream sequence, and this is what she's made a reality.
That's true.
I liked the dream far better.
Yeah. Much more stylish.
Yeah. And then we have Luis Mania that affects everybody except for her friend Polly. There's people with posters. There's people just shouting her name. But
you're like, why isn't she affected by the spell?
Polly's just like walking around going, what's going on here? Like, it's so strange. And I guess she just didn't cast it on her because she's like, she must already like me. Like, she's such a narcissist that she's just like, she already thinks I'm great. Or, I don't know.
It's the movie wouldn't have, she wouldn't have anyone to talk to if.
But that would be great if just the rest of the movie was just like more people, like, until everyone in the whole world is just like,
loved her.
We love you. And she's like, this is so boring.
Even her brother.
Oh, yeah.
He turns into, like, her slave and brings her breakfast in bed and stuff.
He even bought a butler outfit for the sequence.
Yeah, he's super creepy.
Yeah.
I didn't like him at all. He was just, like, not really like a little brother would be. I don't know.
Yeah, it's so strange.
You can tell that actor really wanted a career because he was kind of over the top.
Yeah.
I prepared you a wholesome breakfast. Your morning paper. I took the liberty of ironing your homework.
And then we have a moment where they're backstage. She's there, and there's an electrician, and he says, get ready and don't say good luck, because, well, of course, the electricians classically keep plays in mind.
This is for the play that she did not get the part in, but she's the,
she says,
is she the costume person? What is her
she's
job?
the understudy, I think.
The understudy, yes.
And then she says, break a leg, and then instantly the lady falls and breaks her leg.
Break a leg, Kiki.
So she's put out that evil intention that she wanted something, and she didn't clarify, as we covered earlier.
Yes.
And so she just breaks a person's leg. But again, this film is a family film. Like, if you're not, if you're actually watching this, you're like, oh, she tripped over a ladder or whatever, or electrical cord.
Right.
But in reality, she just broke a woman's leg.
And didn't someone come over and say something like that? Like,
your leg's broken or something like that.
Yeah, somebody was kind of inferring that she was responsible because she said
no,
that.
her friend does.
Yeah.
She walks up
Polly.
and she's like, oh, great.
Yeah.
Like,
Look what you did.
Oh,
I hate when that happens.
Yeah, you're always breaking legs everywhere we go. And then, as a dad, I really appreciated this dad moment.
I hear you got the lead in the school play.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like Cinderella is finally going to the ball.
Yeah, the dance.
It's one of the only lines I feel like the dad has. It's the longest scene he has. And he says, it doesn't matter how others see you, it's how you see yourself. And it's just one of those odd moments in this film that there's a couple little gems where you go, there's actually some good heart in this film, and some messages that, like, are good amongst all this ridiculousness.
Yes.
And I wouldn't have even noticed this had I not had a child, but once I had a child, I'm like really, I guess, hypersensitive to these parts in movies, and especially a scene with a dad and a daughter where I'm like, what? I hope one day I could have a sentence that would be of meaning to my daughter. Right now I'm just the candy fun guy, and she thinks me of very silly, but it'd be amazing to have that kind of impact with somebody, you know?
Yeah.
But
I did love that moment. I mean, that's a good bit of wisdom, which is, plays out in the end.
Yeah.
Sort of how she looks at her situation and she decides to do something about it, which is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. And then I wrote, wait, Brad has been a football captain since the 6th grade?
Yeah, I know. That's amazing.
There's a boat scene where that's his weight that he carries. He's like, you don't understand. I've been a football captain since 6th grade.
What happens when I go to college next year and I have to start all over?
It doesn't matter.
How do you know?
She's like, okay, well, maybe just don't go up for football. I mean,
right. A lot of pressure.
Seems pretty simple there. But anyway, we then get... She talks to Zelda, and next thing you know, we're at the dance. Because like I said, every scene is around a minute and a half.
Yeah, because they sort of jumped from her being like having a crush on Brad to all of a sudden that's her boyfriend.
Yeah.
Like, and you kind of don't know when that happened.
Yeah, it's like...
I mean, I guess it's a spell.
Well,
but there was no talk of his girlfriend or anything like that.
No, it just keeps going. The movie keeps progressing faster and faster and faster because it's like, we gotta get to this part. And that part is, well, Fred is the world's best dancer, and you find that out in this sequence. He is really amazing. And then she makes well, first of all, Zelda's at the dance, which...
She brings Zelda
She brings
with her.
her there. And so all the dancing and everything's happening, and then it'll just show Zelda, and I'm like, what? Nobody... She's not a relative. Like, someone at the dance would have been like, who are you?
Yeah, why are you here?
Yeah, and she's like, I'm magic? I don't know.
Well, the whole part, the whole scene right before was sort of like setting that up, I think, was how they sort of have this heart-to-heart talk about how Louise doesn't want to use magic anymore.
Right.
Because she feels like it's not authentic.
Mm-hmm.
And she wants to just be herself, and she wants people to like her for herself.
Yeah.
And Zelda, who's, the jaded one.
Right.
She kind of softens up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And she starts to see things her way. So I think it was supposed to be like, now they're aligned.
So I can change it all, huh?
The real magic is believing in yourself.
They're going to the dance together.
Dance with me, lady that my parents don't know I hang out with.
Yeah.
I kind of wish that she brought the frog sex slave to the dance. Like, he's just there, too. Just, someone's like, do you want punch? And he's like, ribbit. So she makes the choice to turn her back on magic, and there is a slowly dancing man in a sweater behind her during this sequence. And I recommend anyone that revisit it, just look at the man in the sweater. It's one of the best background dancing sequences. He is so magical. So then she throws her talisman back to Zelda. And that's the end. That's how the movie ends. It's probably maybe one of the most damning witchcraft films somehow, because
well, yeah, because
it's the villain in the whole thing. Is they just make it like not her intentions, but just like they're like, you got to turn your back on this because that's the bad part, rather than really, honestly, she kind of needed to do some work on herself.
Yes, exactly. She just found out she had powers like a week ago.
Yeah.
So obviously she's not going to be that good at it. She could have taken a little more time to figure it out.
Yeah.
I mean, she did get Brad. I mean, turns out, seems like at the end they're trying to say that he did like her for her. Because
but I bet he
dancing
still
together,
didn't know.
right?
Like, he would have still not.
Yeah.
Poor Brad.
He doesn't know why he's doing it, but they're boyfriend and girlfriend, it seemed like.
I think so. I think they are together, supposedly for the right reasons.
Yeah. But I would like to see the sequel, because I think she would be doing witchcraft in the sequel, and she would just be better at it. She would have learned how to use the power.
Right.
That's what I would like to see, because I think it's kind of unrealistic, really. Yeah. In real life, if you found out you had the ability to do these things, you wouldn't just go, never mind.
Yes, no.
You would try and work with it.
Yeah, or, I mean, I would imagine, what you never see is, like, the humanitarian witch. Like, you would never see someone that discovered they had the ability to create things, and then they use it to help the world.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
You never see that portrayed in films. It's always something terrible happening.
That's true. Yeah. She could have done that.
Yeah.
She could have used it for her powers for good.
Mm-hmm.
And not just to get a boyfriend.
She started small.
She's a teenager.
That's
of course
true.
That's what you're going to do.
Of course.
You really don't know.
Yeah.
What to do.
And in high school, people are like, I want to be popular.
Yes.
Which sounds terrible.
Well, at least she learned her lesson right then.
Right.
That she didn't really want to be popular.
Yeah.
It's not that.
Do you think Zelda went home then, or she stayed for the rest of the dance?
Or maybe she started dancing with our friend from Top That.
Fred?
Fred, yeah.
Yeah.
That would have been amazing. He did start dancing with Polly, though, because she kind of had a crush on him.
Yes.
Which we only find out through that one scene.
Yep.
And I believe they said in the extras that the actress was surprised.
Yeah, they didn't know.
Yeah.
She was like, wait, this has been
like,
happening
I'm
the
supposed
whole
to like
time?
him? Yeah.
Which I think anyone would be like, she's supposed to like him?
Right.
Until you see
they're really
him
not
dance
even in
together.
any scenes together.
No.
I mean, barely.
Yeah, except for like what the movie's remembered for.
Right.
Is Top That, which is crazy.
So...
And then who ended up actually together after the movie ended? Do you remember?
The actual actors?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Brad, in real life, his girlfriend, Rhonda,
Yes.
they are married in real
They're
life.
who married. Okay, right.
And I believe they're both on General Hospital or All My Children, one of those soap operas. Like, he's been on that for like 25 years.
Right. And Polly
She's on it too, I think.
went on to become like the yoga instructor to the stars.
Oh, that's right.
And she was like Jennifer Aniston's yoga coach and like a bunch of other people. She has books out. I wish I could remember it right now because it had a very great yoga title.
She seems really cool.
Yeah, anyway, Molly Ingberg, she does yoga stuff now, and she's cool about people remembering her. Top that. I like to imagine that every time she struck a yoga pose, she just quietly says to herself, top that.
Yeah. It was interesting if anyone watches this movie and then goes back and watches on YouTube some of the clips of the original people talking about that scene.
Yeah.
That's really fascinating.
Yes, it is. I mean, anything I found, really, any of the videos, the interviews, the talks with Larry about the music.
Yeah.
It just builds the bigger sort of world, you will, of Teen Witch.
It's weird that that's like the thing people remember from it. I mean, how could you not remember it? But it really doesn't have anything to do with the movie.
No, and there's just so much. Like, that's the thing that I anytime I talk about this movie with somebody, it's just like the conversation isn't going to end because we're just remembering like, oh, what about this?
Yeah,
or
I know.
This sequence. What is it a good day like for you?
A good day. Well, so I have a 9-to-5 job that I'm a designer, and then in my off time I have my shop.
Yes.
So that requires a lot of time, and I'm married, so there's a lot going on in a day. What I would like to do is kind of wake up and meditate as sort of the thing that I think is very grounding and kind of keeps me from stressing out too much. And then I go to work. I usually try and do a little bit of business in the morning, and then I go to work, and then I come home and more business, and eat and everything. So I would say a day that, things go that way and go smoothly, and I actually have time to do something creative would be a good day, because some days it's not like that. I mean, you know how it is.
Yes.
Like it's more on the business side instead of the making side. So it's exciting for me when I get time to make a bunch of spell bottles and to break up the business side.
Yeah.
It's weird because you think, oh, I want to start my own business because I'll get to do whatever I want, and it's only partly like that.
Yeah, because it does become work.
Yeah.
To some extent.
Stuff that I'm not necessarily great at either.
Right. So that's the business side of. I mean, anybody listening that makes things understands like that creative impulse and that drive to make something. But then once it becomes something that is a business, then you've got numbers, and we just talked about shipping things and how that operates, and it's just like it helps, I think, to focus on the parts that you absolutely love, and then try to get just efficient at spending less time on the things that you don't.
Right. And I would say, like, as long as, I would say on the opposite of a bad day, it would just be kind of like where, for me, I kind of need personal time. I guess that's part of my good day thing, is I need some time where I'm by myself to kind of meditate or think about things or make something where I'm kind of not dealing with a bunch of people, because that can be super draining. And I think that anyone involved, with witchcraft or anything like along those lines, you do, like psychics, or you are very sensitive to other people's
Empaths.
Energy.
Yeah,
exactly. And so just even being in big crowds can be kind of upsetting sometimes.
Yeah,
you have to shield yourself,
Yeah, of course.
So I would say like a day that has a good balance of alone time as well as people time, because I get that during my 9-to-5 job.
Yeah.
So I really need to balance that off.
Yeah, I totally understand, because I'll do events with my wife's sauce business where, 20,000 people come through, and that's a lot of resetting for every single person. There's only one of you that they're talking to about this thing, but for me, there's thousands where they have to feel like they're the only person that's done this today. And so that's a lot of being present and, resetting over and over and over, and at the end of it, it can just be, you're just drained, So I really relish in the time that I get to spend not doing that.
Yeah. I mean, you need that.
Yeah.
Because you think in times like that, you don't even probably get to process your own thoughts.
No, it's very much in service of the
mm-hmm.
conversation, because I want the connection to still be like organic and to be present for anything that they might need in the situation. I'm not a salesman at all.
Yeah.
But to do that is a lot of giving. So
Absolutely.
you end up like getting kind of hollowed out by the end.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But what's your favorite thing about being a witchcraft practitioner?
I don't know. I guess to me it was always just something I wanted to do because there's an air of mystery about it. And I think there's always more to learn. I mean, you could really go into mythology and, you know, you can kind of focus on the things that are interesting to you and just take that as far as you want it to go. I mean, there's always books to read. There's, you know, so I love that about it because I really like doing research and history. So to me, that's what's great about it is you can make it what you want. You know, you can make it a religion or you can make it more about the craft of, like, for me, I love, you know, I'm a designer, so I like making physical things, which is why I have a shop. But, you know, making herb blends and oils and spell jars and things like that is what I really love about it. So, but you can go any direction with it depending on what type of person you are. So I think it's really great.
Do you have any advice for people who are interested in perhaps getting into witchcraft? Yeah,
I mean, there's tons of books out there. I study with a group called the Temple of Witchcraft. They're actually in Salem, New Hampshire. And they have classes, so you can take classes with them. Christopher Penzak is the head of the school, and he's written a series of books that are sort of instructional that I would highly recommend. I mean, the beginning... It's essentially each book is a year. Traditionally, witchcraft studies would be a year and a day.
Oh.
Excuse me. So each book is intended to be a year and a day, and you still have self-guided. And the first book is actually just kind of meditation and learning. Meditation is kind of creative visualization techniques and things like that. And from there on, you can keep going. You could take essentially the classes they have are aligned with the books.
Cool. Christopher Penzak,
yeah. And the group's called the Temple of Witchcraft. And if you go to their website, they'll have their books on there. And they're a nonprofit group, and they do a lot of outreach. Yeah, they do. They have all sorts of ministries within the group. So they do a lot of public service, which is really great. Like, they have one group that they knit things. They'll knit like sweaters for people who can't afford to buy, you know, and they'll donate these things, and they'll actually have like a knitting group, and then they donate the sweaters.
Oh, that's great.
So yeah, there's a lot of great information out there. There can be a lot of books that are a little on the lighter side, so it kind of really depends on where you're at and what you are sort of looking for. But I recommend at least checking out the website and kind of seeing if that's for you.
Awesome.
It's a little on the serious side, so some people might not, you know, want it to be that serious.
Sure.
I don't know.
But that's a good starting point.
Sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Any other resources or websites that you'd recommend?
Let me think for a second. I think Temple of Witchcraft is the number one place that I recommend.
Awesome.
And then I mean, I hate to say this, but Pinterest for me is like a huge source of information.
Sure.
I think if you go on there, you'll and you type in sort of specifics, you'll find a lot of resources. There's all sorts of people who have blogs with information.
That's great, because on Instagram it's a bunch of people that look like models. And that maybe seems more style over substance.
Absolutely. And I think it's, exactly. It's more about the hair and clothes and nails and things.
Yes.
It's a visual medium, so I guess that's what you're going to show. But
it just seems like a more model-y version of people that have stickers on their cars that say, I'm a she-bitch. You know, it's like this like inversion of, you know, quote-unquote beauty or something like that. It's like they... Instead of having blonde hair, they have the black hair, and it's like, you know, I get it.
It's all about the image. I mean, and there is something to be said about that in the witchcraft community. Dressing that way sort of is one of the techniques to focus your intention. I mean, that's why witches wear robes and whatnot, because it actually puts you, I mean, so you're talking about people who look like this in their daily life.
Yeah.
But actually wearing clothes that are different with like the robe
Sure.
and the hat essentially are ways to change your mindset.
Yeah,
so when you're in a
through a
ritual, you're
uniform.
thinking about it differently.
Yeah.
But yes, most people have taken that to, it's sort of like the goth style.
Yeah.
Pastel goth?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
It's sort of become its own genre of style.
It has, definitely.
Yeah, so some of it's good.
Weird.
But, you know, you're right. A lot of the accounts on Instagram tend to be
Yeah, so it's
focused
good
on
to
that.
know that Pinterest has a different
I mean,
category
Pinterest
of
is weird because it's just sort of, it's like I feel like it's like a shopping site a lot of times because you can find whatever you want
Sure.
you want to buy. But a lot of people who have blogs post sort of like little photos of their blog post to Pinterest. That's a way a lot of them get traffic. So if you were to type in something about Wicca or witchcraft, you would get a ton of people who made blog posts.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, and you can, I mean, I'm not going to specifically name any because I think it's just like a journey to find your own
adventure.
way. Yeah, and
Yeah,
to
I love
find
that.
what things like resonate with you because everyone sort of has a different path, so.
Yeah. And the last thing I wanted to talk about before we go is we have a mutual friend, and he's somebody who is a ceramicist.
Yes.
And he makes something that's available on your website. And they're beautiful, so I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, so Caleb Palman,
Yes.
ceramics. We got together and kind of came up with this idea of doing a modern version of, they're called demon bowls or incantation bowls. And they're from, they were found in sort of Mesopotamia, like ancient Iran, Iraq, Syria, and they were meant to catch demons, essentially. So they were a regular kitchen-sized bowl, and they would inscribe an incantation on the inside of the bowl, and then they were planted outside the house, upside down, and it was meant to catch the demons. So essentially it's like protection magic, basically, for your house. So we thought it would be cool to make little incense pots that were kind of based on that concept.
It's cool.
Yeah, so Caleb did some, each one is unique, and he kind of inscribed little things on each one, and sometimes there are patterns on the inside, and sometimes it's glazed on the inside, and a lot of them have covers so that you can kind of burn your thing and then cover it up, and it looks, I mean, they're beautiful, and they look really good if you want to put it on your altar. It just looks really nice. They're all amazing. They're all beautiful, and they're all super unique.
And that's on your website, Magic with a K.
Yeah, it's magicwithak.com, and there's also, I have an Etsy shop, so that links, Magic with a K actually links to the Etsy shop, which is Magic with a K on Etsy.
Perfect. Which brings us to my final question, and it's my favorite.
Okay.
Juliet, what are your dreams like?
It's the only thing I have to do with my dreams that have to do with witchcraft. Like, normally I don't dream anything like I'm, super exotic or anything like that. And I don't really remember a lot of my dreams.
Yeah.
And they're all pretty disjointed, I would say. But there have been a few times in my life where I've dreamed about people that I knew. And then I found out that they had died.
Whoa. Like that night?
It's happened like 3 times. No, but recently. And they weren't people that I was necessarily in day-to-day contact with. So maybe it had already happened and I just didn't hear about it or whatnot.
Wow.
Yeah. Last time it happened was probably about 10 years ago. It was like somebody that I worked with and hadn't had contact with her in years. So I had no idea about her. And then all of a sudden I just dreamed about her. And then I found out that she had died. Yeah, it was really bizarre. And the first time it happened to me when I was like 12, and I was like, oh, that's so bizarre. Like, I hadn't thought about that person in a year or something. So I asked actually the Christopher Penzak, who is who started Temple of Witchcraft, kind of what does that mean? What is that about? And his kind of answer was like, sometimes when people pass on, their energy is still sort of might reach out to you because maybe you have a connection with that person, and so they're kind of reaching out to you at that point. So yeah, it was really, now I kind of, it hasn't happened in a while, but now I'm kind of like, every time I dream about somebody, I'm like, oh. I'm like, oh no.
What a way to get the news.
Like, hopefully that's not what happened.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's terrifying.
Yeah, it's not necessarily, like, when I dream about them, though, it's not, like, a scary thing or anything.
Right.
It's just like, oh, that person's in my dream who I haven't seen in a while. Usually it's always people that I haven't had contact with in a while.
Yeah. Well,
so, there
I
you
will,
go.
I'll stay in contact then.
Okay, good.
Thank you, Juliet, for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and thank you for listening to VHS. Until next time, when I talk with a different person with a different profession about a different movie.